Hi, hello everyone. Thanks for joining today's coffee chat about what founders should be aware of when hiring a fractional leader. I'm today here with Sheil. Welcome, Sheil.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for
I hope
joining.
you're doing. Yeah, I hope you're doing good today. I don't know where you are joining from, but today in the Netherlands is 30 degrees. So that means that a lot of people might not want to be at a webinar at this time, but nonetheless, we know that many of you are going to watch the recording, and so we're going to do our best to have an engaging session. So if you are here or you join later, please just say, where you're coming from. If you have a main question that brought you here, and we're going to try to give our best insights on what you've learned over the past years. Maybe before we get started, I don't know if you know us or not, so maybe she'll want to give a short introduction.
Yeah. So I am Sheil. I'm a fractional CMO. I work currently for 5 different companies, all in the specific stages of growth. And I have been in marketing for over 13 years already and always worked in hyper-growth tech companies like Lightspeed or EVBox, for example. And I also had my own company for 2 years, a tech company. So I also know how it is to start from scratch and to build something from scratch. So with all those learnings, I thought it would be good to do fractional work, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah. And I'm Hugo. I also been in B2B SaaS for the last 15 years, and IoT, also EVBox, where I met Sheil. And for the past close to 3 years, the fractional growth or fractional CMO, CGO role has been growing a lot. And I've also been doing that. And if you were at our last webinar where we talk more about from a fractional angle, you see that we have both of us very different approaches. Sheil has 5 different companies. I have one company that work very deep, so you have different methodologies to get there. You can watch that webinar. But today we are focusing on the founder side and what it happens when hiring a fractional leader and the kind of mistakes or not that they make. So for that, we have some slides just to help us navigate a little bit ourselves. So let me just also move myself so I can see you all. You should be able to see the screen, right? Not yet. And now you should be able to see it. Yeah, there you go. So there are 7-8 topics we are going to address today. And of course, if you have questions, please do submit on the chat. First off is just, again, a clarification on what fractional CXO or CMO, CGO, or CRO means. What are some of the most common use cases? What are some of the costly mistakes? How to ensure to find the right fit? When fractional isn't the right move, and more from our angle of marketing and sales, what kind of marketing and sales leadership your company needs right now? And then what kind of outcomes can you demand and expect, and what not to expect? So that's kind of the topics we go through today. If you see something that is missing, please let us know. But to get started, I would like to just share like this that you can, not going to go through it, but then you can, take a screenshot, take it with you afterwards, which is the variation of fractional versus interim consultant advisory and agency. And there's different things that you need to consider when hiring each of them. When hiring a fractional, normally you have to consider that for a fractional to have a good impact will be at least, most of the cases, 6 months, sometimes 9 or 12, depends. If you're hiring a fractional, you should expect to embed in the team. So he leads a team, drives a team, makes decisions for the team. He or she does represent the brand and the company. But of course, the scope and work style is part-time. Could be a day a week, half a day, 2 days, 3 days a week, 4 days. It depends a lot on the agreement. And the fractional often is part of the leadership team, being it management or not, and is most suitable when you want to fix the larger go-to-market, growth bottlenecks, strategy gaps. This is where fractional is really a great part. Also, fractional is becoming popular because you can access high senior executives with experience at a fraction of the cost. And then you can also figure out over time if this is the right profile of person I want to hire permanently. Opposite to the other cases where an interim is more someone that joins a team to stabilize it. It can lead a team to stabilize, and it's there until the permanent FTE is hired or returned. A consultant is project-based, does not represent the company, is external to the team, and is not part of leadership, and also comes just to solve specific problems, mostly with expert input. And advisory also happens quite a lot, and there are a lot of fractionals that are mostly advisory and they don't position well, so you have to be careful with it. It varies from 3 months to multi-year, is a few hours a month, is not part of leadership, is mostly when you want to have sanity checks, directional input. And the last one is that there is also a rise of fractional agencies, and then it varies per project or retainer, but they operate a lot of the times outside of the team. They typically don't represent the company unless they are acting under your brand. And most of the times they just have a full scope delivery. Like, I want you to help level up my brand or content or ads or sales processes, or lead the engineering team if it's a fractional CTO agency. But here, most of these cases, they're very specific to a delivery of services. And normally it's not one person, it's a set of people within a team that is helping you out. So it's good to be, aware of these differences before you decide who to hire and what you need at the moment of your company. Anything to add, Shil? Or
no, I think it's a very comprehensive overview.
Yeah, so this I think is good. It's a good table to have at any moment of time on a company when you decide to hire. And what are some of the use cases that you see, Shil, in terms of the fractional use case?
So I think when people talk about fractionals, the most thought about use case is like the acting CMO, right? Someone that takes over completely the team for a fraction of the time, which is also most often compared to interim work. But then interim work is usually when you replace that person completely, and here's like where you do it for a fraction of the time. And the stage in the situation is usually seed to series. Could be series C, D even. I tend to operate usually in C to series A and B. But that's also up to you as a fractional, of course, to make that decision and see what is most suitable there. And the key needs are usually go-to-market strategy, organization design, specific channel focus, and determining like what channels to focus on first, and leadership and accountability. So you really step in and take over like the complete team. So you are responsible for that. The second use case is coaching the head of marketing. So at the moment, for example, I'm coaching 2 heads of marketing for 2 different companies, where you are more like a shadow CMO. So you have a slightly different role to when you are when you have full marketing ownership, right? So it also changes the way that you are entering the company. Usually what you see happening there is that you're also more of a sparring partner to the executive team or to the founders, and making sure that you coach that person to that next step of growth. Examples here is like, oh, you just got funding, you have a head of marketing that's junior to media, that has some experience but doesn't have knowledge about like all the different aspects to bring the company to the next level and where it needs to be with the expectations that investors are having. And then usually it's a good time to hire a fractional CMO so that person can coach your head of marketing to that next step of growth. And the other use case is founder-led go-to-market and building out the first team, right? So usually what you see there is that it's after product market fit, you have some traction. It's usually pre-seed to Series A, and the founder is still owning the go-to-market, or the founders are still owning the go-to-market. And that's where you then come in, where you start building like the positioning frameworks, defining the ICP, defining the first go-to-market strategy, start hiring the team, and make sure that you offload the work from the founding team to make sure that you build a team that is there and ready to scale. So those are my use cases. I don't know, if you have any other use cases that you have seen.
No, those are the most traditional ones. Even if exception with the CMO, there's also like the CTOs, CROs, but they all fit the same approach of having a full technology ownership or full sales ownership. Overall, I think it's just clear for the organization or the company is that define your key needs first and which stage are you in, and then probably have the most adaptable use case here, and that's the good way to get started. Other than that, these are the most common ones that I've noticed and that most of the fractionals operate within or make value. Yeah. With that, one of the other things are like, let's say, I think in this group, I don't know if anyone that is watching ever hired a fractional person or not. If yes, it'll be great to hear in your comments. If you never hired, Also, it would be great to hear in the comments if what was the case. But if not, these are the most common mistakes made when hiring fractionals. And some of these ones are from conversations we've been having as peers. Some other ones, I also felt firsthand from the fractional side that, this was not like the great hire from their side to me also. And the first one is the most common one, which is misaligned expectations. So that means that you hire a fractional, you expect overnight results, and that normally does not happen. Because if you're hiring a fractional, it's because something is fundamentally missing, and it takes time to fix, which is why a lot of times you try to hire to fix a function and not to lead it, and that's normally leads to a lot of issues. The other one is like you want someone that solves a lot of short-term thinking, whereby fractionals are also looking at long-term impact, and you might not see the results happening right away. So the most common thing, for example, from a CMO point of view, you say that you're hiring a fractional, you say, no, we want to build a long-term brand, and then on the second week, you start asking, I want to see more leads, and then you start creating the friction for no reason. And the other one is lack of internal readiness. So, for example, hiring a fractional CMO or a fractional CRO and not having budget or resources to support the execution. So having that clear ahead of time will be fantastic. And also expecting a fraction to do it all. If it's a fractional, will not be available all the time. They have to really focus on a moving metric, a moving tactic, or a strategy that you really want to do. So it has to have an internal alignment on the go-to-market model. Just to give an example, yesterday I had lunch with someone that was doing a head of marketing for a close to Series A B2B SaaS company, and they had a completely mismatch on the go-to-market model. Half of the founder wanted to go upstream, so they wanted to go for enterprise and selling to enterprise. The other ones wanted to go low and to go keep on the SMB, and those are very different go-to-market models. So if you're hiring a fractional, you have to hire a fractional that either conducts one or the other, but not both, because it's going to have an issue. So internal readiness is critical. The other one is wrong strategy, wrong hire. That's more on the use case and needs that Shil talked about. So hiring a fractional before product market fit is wasted money. Any kind of fractional, being CTO, being CRO, doesn't matter. Hit product market fit and then look at the fractional. Then delegating strategy to junior hires, expecting that the head of marketing that is being doing well tactically will keep growing with the company. It might happen, but be more the exception than the rule. And the other one is overvaluing resume over relevance. And this is particularly important now with LinkedIn, where everyone feels like a shining star, including sometimes ourselves with posting. But the reality is we have our sweet spots. So, for example, if you go and try to hire a growth guru that you see on LinkedIn at work at like all these super hot B2B SaaS startups, but they all have like funding, VC funding, projections, a big team, already a lot of momentum. And you hire to try to solve the 1 to 10 million kind of situation, you might be in a lot of trouble, because the person is expecting resources, budget, understanding that might not be there. So be clear about who are you hiring, and don't look at logos, look at relevance of what the person has done or will do for you. And the last one is, if you hire a fractional to do what they are told, you're going to be there for a surprise, because most of the fractionals also want to understand the business, and they might challenge you back. So resisting challenge, it's good, of course, to have productive conflict. But yeah, if you're hiring someone just to do what they are told, you probably don't need a fractional then. So be aware that you will be challenged back, and you do not have to micromanage or overstep a fractional hire. And the last one is lack of clarity or decision rights. Decision rights can be something as simple as, can a fractional sign contracts? Yes or no? Can a fractional make decisions up to 5K budget? Yes or no? Can a fractional make choices on an account-based marketing campaign or a sales process or the tool to use? All of that has to be clear ahead of time, or within the very first weeks, to avoid surprises. So those are the most common mistakes. I know from the group that sees a quiet group. I don't know if you haven't seen other mistakes, if you hire fractionals. If so, please do share them on the chat. But these are the most common ones that I will avoid at all costs. Yeah. Shil, anything on your end or?
No, but I think the next question is a very important question. Like, how do you find then the right fit, right? Because all these common mistakes are really happening, and I think you and I have been in those situations where we've seen those mistakes. Because I think we challenge, once we start the first conversation or the intro chat with a founder or an exec, we also ask them questions, right, to understand, are they a right fit for us? And what we want to suggest here is that you actually do the same towards the fractionals, right? You need to have very clear in your mind, what's your briefing? What do you want them to do? And of course, also check the framework again on, does it fit, right? Is the fractional a right hire, or do I need something else? And if you have a good fractional, that person will usually also tell you, hey, sorry, this doesn't work, right? Or this is not my specialism, or I cannot support you in this stage if it's a good fractional. So that is something to look out for. But here are some supporting questions that you might think of when you start having a conversation with a fractional, is like, which part of the funnel are we trying to fix first, right? So ask that question to yourself, and then based on that, you can also determine what type of fractional you might need. And what or where are we in a product market fit or the go-to-market journey? And there, what Ugo also stated is that it's very important to understand the experience that that fractional marketing leader had, what type of journey they had. Have they worked at hyper growth tech startups, for example, or did they only work at startups that at a certain point they left and then went to the next startup? That meant that they didn't went to all these different stages, right? And they don't have that experience that they might need in that specific role that you're looking for. Also, I think it's very important that the fractional is asking the uncomfortable questions to you, right? If you are in a conversation with a fractional and you feel that they are just talking, they are just saying what you want to hear, then usually when they start working with you, you know, you will see that it might not go in the right direction. You should see that they challenge you, and you should also see that they might smart you out in a way. I mean, that's what they are for, right? Because they are executives, they should have that experience to a specific level. Maybe to give also one example is that I had a conversation with a company where I clear in the first conversation that I had with them, it was very clear that they were looking for someone that was more on the executional side of things. So there I also advised them to look maybe for an agency or work with like someone that is more ahead of marketing and not like a C-level, right? Because C-level will be more on a strategic level and not so much on an executive level. And that is also something to look out for. One other thing that I also really like is that are they excited about your market or your problem? Because if they have experience in the market, it can of course bring a lot of value, right, to your company, or at least that they have some type of affinity with the product. Because as marketeers, you need to get into the heads of the customers that you're trying to serve. So if they have some enthusiasm around that, that's of course also a good indicator that it might be the right fit for your company. And also, it's very important to understand if they will be embedded in the organization or not. You know, will they work with the company and be like part of like the organization for the time that you sign the contract with them? Is that the case, yes or no? Or will they, you know, do they operate in a different way? And then maybe if you can go to the next slide, Ugo. Yeah, it's also important to highlight when fractional isn't the right move, right? Because we talked a lot about when is it the right move, or you know, what type of frameworks are there, what type of use cases. And Ugo already touched upon it, but I think it's very important that if you don't have product market fit yet, it's not the right timing to look for a fractional, right? First, get that sorted with your founding team, and then once you have that, or you're ready to scale, or you just got funding, those are usually moments when you start looking to hire a fractional. Also, you're looking for someone to just execute, right, without strategic input. That's also then, it could be a fractional if they name themselves like a fractional, I don't know, fractional marketing specialist, right, on a different level with more executional traits, then it could be a fit. But usually when it's on a C-level, then that's not the right move. Also, it's very important that you should realize that it's important to have budget, a team, or the bandwidth to support, right? When a fractional comes in, they will demand certain things from you. It's important to make sure that there is a budget and there is support and that there are certain things in place to get things going, because otherwise, it's a bit a waste of money and time. And you want to have someone to solve for growth, but don't want to be challenged. So if you don't want to be challenged, right, if you already have all the answers, then why would you start working with a fractional? Because that is, I think, something that you will see happening. At least I think Hugo and I will always challenge the status quo and come up with stuff that, might be causing a little bit friction, but I think the friction should be good at this moment. Yeah.
Yes. I think for the last one, for the last bits, we have 2 more sections. Again, questions, comments, please do keep them coming. 2 things. And this is more specifically for the go-to-market function, sales, marketing, which is going through quite a transformation nowadays and a lot of pressure, which is what kind of go-to-market marketing and sales leadership is needed right now. And I think there's 2 elements here. The first one is when hiring a fractional CMO or even a CRO, you want someone that avoids thinking too much into a silo format. Yeah, this is my marketing department. I stay within my silo. I fix marketing and I leave. Or comes a CRO, I'll fix sales. Or comes a customer success or a retention person or a RevOps person, I'll just fix RevOps or customer success and I leave. The best fractionals will be someone that is always looking horizontally across functions and departments, basically looks from the buyer point of view and just try to see, okay, I joined to help on marketing, but I understand, how this affects sales, customer success, what is the interconnections. It is always collaborative and helps you strengthen your understanding of your processes and journey across the whole go-to-market. So that's the first thing. It's more of a mindset point of view, but it's easily seen if you start asking the fractional, how do they help the different functions level up, not just their own. The other one, I think we already touched upon quite a bit, but almost every single fractional, especially on the go-to-market, will come and ask about the whole strategic foundation first. Means that they're going to validate the basics. What's the ideal customer profile and who are we targeting and why? What's the pricing scheme? What's the messaging? They'll challenge the CEO on board, maybe on direction, if you go upstream or if you keep on, SMBs. So they will try to understand the strategic foundation first, because that's the basis to do any kind of work. The other part, if you go more to the right, is that they know how to execute or will try to understand that now they have to execute in noisy channels. Every single channel is crowded. There's not like one channel that is a crown queen or king of all the revenue that's coming. Every buyer is skeptical. So you need a leadership or a fraction that crafts differentiated playbooks. So you should be looking at systems and signals and not just one-hit campaigns. If you have a fraction that is talking always on campaigns, short-term wins, and it might work for the short term, but then you're going to keep on needing to revamp your fractional. So see if, say, someone that really thinks more over long term, even if they act short. The other one is that they are adaptive thinkers, and it's just not what worked last quarter, but they also are a sparring partner. So they talk about shifting by journeys. They're not afraid of figuring out how to get more short-term pipeline, but they also long-term trend. And they apply data and judgment at the same time. So because most of the times data is not perfect, so they also have to apply some level of judgment. And then the other part is more what I call that most fractionals always breeds a little bit of art and accountability. So you want someone that also has some bold ideas and storytelling, but they're also budget efficient and performance accountable. So it's almost like they always try to help the CEO on the board thinking about how can this company stand out, but also how can this company convert better. And the last one, you also want someone that levels up the team, because they're going to leave. A fractional will leave the company sooner or later. It can be 6 months, can be 9 months, can even be 12 months, but he's going to leave. And because a fractional is going to leave, you want to hire someone that recruits and develops the right people, and that it helps create a certain behavior that prevails after they leave. So the function needs to outlive the fractional. So I think that's really important, that you really understand if the person that you are hiring is a high executor, but also has built teams, has understand teams, because when they leave, you want the team to keep on building the momentum and not depend on someone else. It did happen for one of my fractional roles that we built a team, we built everything. It was going really great. They hired someone that they felt was a good fit because he had industry knowledge, and then sometimes that's one of the not a red flag, but the hidden red flags, which is industry knowledge, but not the right mindset on executing in noisy channels, not creative execution, which means that after 6 months, the team fell back into the old habits and challenges, and then they asked me to step back in, which is not ideal. So I had to go back and I had to adjust the way of thinking differently to make sure that the function would outlive again, so that I don't have to go there anymore. So that's it on that part. And then maybe, to wrap up, Sheil, on the last two notes.
Yeah, so I've been in many conversations where first-time founders have certain expectations. We want more leads, we want more this, we want more that, and I'm always like cutting them off right away. It's like, okay, if you're gonna work with me, you also need to understand like what can you expect, right? Because it's very important that you don't have misaligned expectations. So Ugo also already touched upon it, but it's really strategic clarity. I think that's the biggest thing that fractionals bring is strategic clarity. What is the direction that we're going to take? ICP, positioning, the go-to-market model, but also look at the current go-to-market model and where it should go, right? Because sometimes a fractional joins and then there is already a go-to-market model defined. And it's also about taking what works, but then accelerating on what works and not implementing like 10 different channels at the same time, but like slowly scaling. First one channel, test it out. If it works, scale it, then go to the next channel. And I think those are things that you really need to expect from a fractional. That person should understand how to prioritize, right? And especially with the team that you have, based on the capabilities of your team, work with that team and get the best out of them. That's really where the execution momentum also comes in, right? What are the early campaigns that we can start doing? How do we improve the current channels? And how do we scale specific motions? And one other thing that I think that is not always the expectation from founders or execs when I talk to them is like, I will take the workload off your shoulders. I always tell them like, you don't have to worry anymore. I will report back to you, I can be your sparring partner, but also I will just make sure that the marketing day-to-day will keep on running. So I think especially in specific situations where founders and executives are too much hands-on and need to, be more strategic on other parts of the business, that's where, a fractional can really help. And that's an outcome that you can really expect from a fractional. You should not worry, you should not have to micromanage. This person should be able to just update you on the relevant things that really matter for the business. Org structure and hiring, Ugo already said it. A fractional won't stay on forever. That's why they are a fractional. I always say at a certain point I will leave, and then my clients are saying, hey, you're leaving already. I'm like, yeah, of course, because I see it's time to leave, because we now have built a team, we've built the foundations, and now it's time for me to go. But that's also the promise, right? They will make sure that there's a foundation that you can build upon, and also that it doesn't need to radically change when a new person comes in, because that person will be hired by that person. So they will make sure that that person understands how to drive that strategy forward. So that also helps again with the team lift, more confidence, better prioritization, stronger cross-functional alignment between all the different teams, working very closely with product, working very closely with sales, building those bridges, and making sure that, when they, leave your company, you will feel that there's major changes happened in only a short amount of time. And I think there's one last slide, if I'm correct. Yeah. And then what not to expect, we mentioned it already a little bit throughout the presentation, overnight growth. I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions in marketing at large, is like overnight growth, right? You push a button and you have 10,000 leads the next day in your email box, which is not the case. So I think here there are only a few levers that you can pull within a marketing strategy that will help with quick wins, right? It's usually performance-based and it's intent-based. So if your market doesn't have a lot of intent, it's very difficult to have overnight growth. So the fractional will challenge you on what to expect in that regard. So you should not expect overnight growth when it's not possible, right? So it's very important to keep that in mind. Also, a magic bullet, right? No hire, even if it's a fractional or not, will solve everything in your organization. It's about building the right system over time. And those things also take time, because sometimes it has to do with processes, with people that need to change behavior, all of these things, right? So that's something important to keep in mind there. And fixing a broken model with no resources. Fractional leaders bring clarity and direction, but they can't execute without a budget or a team. So that's also very important to keep in mind. It's like, if you hire a fractional, but you don't give them the resources or team to execute, or the support from the organization, that's also a very important one, because sometimes I have been in situations where it's like, oh yeah, we don't prioritize it. Oh, we don't have time. Oh, we don't pick up the phone. And fractionals only work 1 day a week. Then you will start delaying. So it's very important to embrace the fractional part if you are choosing to go to hire a fractional. So yeah, that's about what not to expect. I don't know, Ugo, if you have anything else to add there.
Yeah, no, I think beyond the elements you mentioned, fixing a broken model of light growth, a magic bullet, I think is also not to expect a full. I think, I know it's obvious that not expect a full-time presence, but sometimes you hire fractionally, hope that they operate exactly at the same level of availability as you in a leadership team. And I think it's also just to have consciousness that you should focus on the outcome, not on the time spent with the organization. Yeah. So also I think not to expect that the fractional will be available 24/7 to solve everything, even if they are part of the leadership team. I think some fractions are flexible and they are asynchronous. Like myself, I try to do an asynchronous check-in every day. But I'm also very diligent that there are specific days that is not committed and I just really don't work. Otherwise, from a path point of view, the fractional then is not a fractional, he's just a full-time employee. So I think it's also good to not to expect to act as a full-time employee, because sometimes that's normally what tends to happen in a lot of the cases. So that's something to be clear. I think that's mostly what we wanted to share in the webinar. We also don't want to take more time than is required. I see some people online still. Do you have any questions, comments, insights? Was there any particular part that was useful to know or get from our conversation? I'll give one or two minutes to see if anyone writes a comment. Otherwise, we'll wrap up the webinar, and the recording will be sent to everyone following this up. I think I'll wait a few more minutes, but if not, Sheil, do you have plans for the weekend?
Well, I'm in Barcelona.
That's
I also work a lot remote for most of my clients. I'm actually going on a catamaran. So I'm gonna be on a boat. And tonight, actually, there's off sonar. So tonight I'm gonna have a little party with friends. It has been a while. I'm actually looking to do that. It's very exciting. So yeah, in Barcelona the weather is beautiful. So what about you?
Okay. Just taking advantage of the weather in Amsterdam and enjoy time with family outside in the park. That's about it. That's as far as it goes. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. It was a good session. You'll receive the recording afterwards, and eager to keep connecting with you on social media and other elements. Thanks.
Thanks everyone. Have a good one.